In 1966, Ottawa businessman and sports enthusiast Howard Darwin had a vision. He had heard rumblings that the city was going to build a combination football stadium hockey arena in the heart of Ottawa. A junior hockey team, Darwin thought, would be the perfect tenant. So along with Bill Toohey and Bill Cowley, Darwin applied for an Ontario Hockey Association franchise. On February the 16th, 1967, the Ottawa 67s were born. The team's first game took place in Niagara Falls on October 6th, 1967. The first goal was scored by Steve Ostapik on a pass from Denis Potvin. Bill Long was the coach, and the first captain in the team's history was Bill Clement. The 1974-75 season is remembered for being Brian Kilrea's first as the coach of the 67s, but that year a pair of players took their place in the annals of team history, Peter Lee and Tim Young.
It was Peter and Timmy. They led us offensively, and they were the stars of our team. And you know, it was we didn't have a great team. We were winning a lot of games 5-3, 6-4, 8-6, you know, 7-5. We were allowing a few goals too many, so we became good on face-offs.
While Lee is remembered as one of the franchise's best players, Young is sometimes forgotten. But on two nights in 1975, Young was all over the score sheet. In a January game against St. Catharines, he tied an OHA record by scoring 6 goals in one game. He also added 2 assists for a club record of 8 points. Young repeated his 8-point feat just 2 weeks later, when he scored a goal and assisted on 7 others. Tim Young still shares the OHL record for the most goals in one game. The inaugural season of the Ottawa 67s was filled with many historic firsts, but not with many wins. Nevertheless, hopes were higher for their second season.
You could see in the first year, obviously, they were struggling. I mean, a lot of those kids had never played at that level before. But it was really something that was not totally surprising, because if they could mold that year that they made the playoffs, then they were going to be rather competitive.
Competitive they were, up until the last game of the regular season. They were fighting the Oshawa Generals for 8th place, and it all came down to one game at home against the Toronto Marlboros. If the 67s won, they would be in the playoffs for the first time. Pierre Jerry, the team's leading scorer, scored twice and added an assist to lead the 67s to a 6-4 victory. The 67s were in the playoffs. At the conclusion of the 1994-95 season, the 67s found themselves in an unfamiliar place, out of the playoffs. On the bright side, they could select early in the OHL draft, and they certainly made their choices count. In the first round, Brian Kilrea selected defenseman Nick Boynton, and in the third round, Brian Campbell. Those two 16-year-olds would make a considerable impact on the 67's blue line.
I can still remember drafting, when we drafted Nick Boynton, I think it was in Barrie, and I remember him coming down to the table to see us, and he looked very mature at that time for a 16-year-old.
And I just put them together. I said, guys, grow with each other. You're going to run our power play this year as a second unit, and for 3 years you'll run it. So they did. They worked together, and they did run it.
You know, I don't think it happens too often that 16-year-olds play together on a fence and hopefully can contribute. So, you know, I still remember the first game that we played, and playing on the power play and getting some. I think he had a goal and I had an assist, or a couple assists. So, you know, it was a good start from there and a good career for both of us there.
Yeah, it's pretty tough when you put 2 16-year-olds on the ice to run a power play, but they were so good at the time, and of course they went on. Every year they kept getting better, and they went on, and they were a big, major factor in us winning the World Cup in '99.
I think Brian Kilrea knew what he was doing when he first did it, and drafted both of us to win it from the back end mostly, and have guys that were going to be there and contribute and do well. And I think the back end of defense that we had was something that we anchored for a while.
Over the course of their 4 years in Ottawa, they would be among the best at their positions in the OHL, and the building blocks of a franchise that went from being one of the worst in the league to one of the best. Fittingly, in Boynton and Campbell's final game with the 67s, they won the Memorial Cup on home ice. Coming up, a record falls from an unlikely source, and Killer makes a foxy trade. In the first season of the Ottawa 67s, the team managed only 6 wins and averaged less than 2 goals per game. But within that year, a local 14-year-old made his debut with the team. Few knew at the time they were watching a hockey legend.
None of this would have happened, I don't think, had my brother not been on the Ottawa 67s. My brother is about 3.5, 4 years older than I am. And Jean was there, so I think there was a comfort zone there. And Bill Long and Howard Darwin were very, very careful, you know, talking to my dad, getting things organized so that they sort of paved the way, made it as easy as possible.
But playing against players 5 and 6 years older than he was would not be easy for Denis Potvin.
There were times when people talk to you and they bump you and they give you a little elbow or something and see how you're going to react. Unfortunately, you know, even at 14, I was, 185, close to 190 pounds, and I fought back. So, at that point, I think I established some kind of a momentum in terms of gaining the amount of ice that I was going to get in respect.
Potvin would go on to play 5 more seasons with the 67s and reach incredible heights in the hockey world. That first season as a 14-year-old was just the beginning. The 1976-77 season looked like it was going to be a success right from the start, and through 30 games, the 67s were among the top teams in the league. But on December the 14th, Ryan Kilray surprised everyone by trading 2 key contributors for a player who, because of league rules, would not play until the following fall. That player was Jim Fox.
Went to the camp in Windsor that year, just could not handle it. I guess I was too young, I wasn't comfortable, I didn't feel comfortable with the surroundings, and I just wanted to go back home.
It was quite a shocking trade at the time because Ben and John Wilson were both important members of our team.
I knew that we had 2 fellows that were in the wings, ready to come into the lineup, that both had recovered from operations early in the year. Eddie Hospodar and Steve Payne.
And as it turned out, that year we did go to the Memorial Cup. The trade of John Wilson, who was a left winger, gave Steve Payne a much more prominent role on the team. And, we gelled as a team after that.
Ben Wilson would only play 17 games for the Spitfires before moving on to the NHL, while John played in 35. Meanwhile, Hospodar and Payne ably stepped into a 67s team that rumbled all the way to the Memorial Cup final. And starting in the fall of the 1977 campaign, Jim Fox would cement his legacy as one of the greatest junior hockey players of all time.